I'm the director of the center here. I am the one American diplomat who works with 8 staff members here to help people in this part of the world understand more about the United States, who we are, and why we do what we do. Okay? We are a part of the U.S. Embassy, which the last time we had this meeting a year or so ago was still in Tel Aviv. As we all know, I think it's 15 minutes away now in Almona. There have been a lot of changes that we have experienced in the bilateral relationship, and I will talk a little bit about them as they are relevant to the audiences that you all might be addressing in what may be grant proposals that you'll put in. So before I get started, let me introduce my colleagues. I mentioned I have 8 Israeli colleagues with whom I work. I am the grants officer, okay? So what that means in the structure is that I'm responsible for signing, the documents that will eventually be produced if you do get a grant funded or a cooperative agreement, and there is a difference between the two of those. And I work with grants officer representatives, okay? These guys are GORs. I'm a GO, they're a GOR, because this is the government, you can't say anything in complete sentences. So what we're here to do today is pretty much, I want to highlight for you, if you open your packet, you'll see a printed copy of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which basically gives to you, you're recording this, right? Yes. Oh, hello. Okay. This basically gives you kind of your guidance, your marching orders, okay? And the closer you adhere to what we're about to go over, the better off you are going to be. In part because one of the first ways of disqualifying a grant proposal is because you haven't done it properly, okay? So today is your opportunity to think about this, to ask questions. The way this is going to look today is that I'm going to go through the document and I'm going to highlight what certainly there's one person missing, Jackie Stein. She's actually out with a group of embassy staff and consulate staff who are in East Jerusalem today exploring some options there. Anyway, so with the 5 of us who basically will be responsible for meeting the U.S. government requirements on these kinds of things, we want to make sure that you understand them. We want to make sure that if you have questions, now is the time to ask them in the course of today's conversation. And so after I make my overarching remarks, I will then also pretty much let these guys answer the questions because I'm the boss, so they have to do the nitty-gritty work. So that's kind of how it works. And it's a good system. I think, for many of you who have had grants with the American Center before, I do hope it leaves you feeling that they've been part of good relationships. So, all right, let's highlight at the very top where it says total amount available. We are anticipating that it will be $375,000 or somewhere thereabouts. How many American citizens are in this room? Oh, good. Okay. So I don't have to tell you that the government has been going through one crisis after the other, and that quite honestly, as of next Saturday, we may be back in another shutdown. I expected to know how much money we were going to have about 2 months ago. Anyway, so that's why it says subject to confirmation of availability of funds. Okay? So, but I will say that this amount of money is what we do anticipate we will have to offer up for grant opportunities and cooperative agreement opportunities. We anticipate this is more or less realistic, or else we would not have published it. Okay? Do I have it in my hands right now? No. Is that a major problem? No, it's a minor one. Okay, the cap for each award for this cycle for 2019 is higher than last year. It is now up to $15,000. Okay? For the general kinds of grants, the exception, as you can see in the next paragraph, there are 2 categories. There's the general stuff, where we've got $325,000 or thereabouts allocated for those kinds of grants, up to $15,000. And then there's a whole separate, whole separate track for English for specific purposes. Okay? Because again, among the things that we do here is we promote the use of English. We promote the use of English, again, for the specific purposes are basically professional purposes. We do not offer, the ABCs of English language. Okay? Let's go down to A1, the program objectives. There are 4 strategic goals that the U.S. government is pursuing here. They haven't changed in years. But, again, what you're going to need to do is to craft your document, your grant proposal, to specifically address one, if not more, of these goals. Okay? Peaceful resolution to the conflict, deepening of the economic relationship, strengthening the bilateral security relationship, and fostering an Israeli understanding of American policy and society. Okay? We can also, if you want to jump in and ask, try and hold your questions, because I do think it's going to be kind of comprehensive as we get to the end of it. I hope a lot of these will be answered. Okay. Next page. What is also very important to us, all right, is that you're highlighting shared values that promote bilateral cooperation. I should have brought, which I usually do, my copy of the U.S. Constitution. Okay? The stuff in the U.S. Constitution is what we, are talking about when we talk about foundational shared values. Okay? We do want you to use this particular venue for either all or some of your program. It's important to get people in this venue. People love this venue. They walk in, they've been like, I walked by that place for 40 years, never went in there. What's in there? And then they come in here and they're like, wow, I want to come back and do more here. Okay? So it doesn't mean that you need to have your whole program here, but it does mean like a launch, a conclusion, a graduation. But we are also happy to have you do the program regularly here. Okay? Let's see, what else do I want to mention? Okay, right, an American element. Okay, that's also really important. We will interpret the American element quite broadly. Okay, that might mean, again, the shared values stuff. Okay, it might mean that you have a relationship or you would develop a relationship with a U.S. institution. Okay, so let's say, a college, a university, an NGO in the United States. And that could be your partner. Your American element would be brought into your proposal via that, okay? It might mean that one of your instructors for your program, is an American Israeli, is an American Palestinian, okay? So as I say, the American element can be defined broadly, but it does need to be in the proposal. We will look for that. Okay? I'm sorry? I'm on this page 2 under the very top paragraph. Okay. The next 2 paragraphs I'm going to let you read on your own. Okay? The eligible activities, the kinds of things that we fund. Okay? The program areas that we view as priorities. I think those are reasonably self-evident. If not, then please go ahead and ask questions about it later. Page 3. Okay? Participants and audiences. I think if you look at the bullet points that are, toward the middle of the page, you will see our traditional audiences. Okay? But now I'm going to explain to you the way in which some of the bureaucracy and the politics of this past year have affected our outreach efforts, and then can also affect the way you bring audiences to us, okay? Suffice it to say that the American Embassy now is playing a larger and more integrated role in East Jerusalem, okay? So that neighborhoods, settlements, depending on what lenses you're looking through, in East Jerusalem, okay, that used to be east of the Green Line, which now, according to the U.S. government, right, Jerusalem is the capital of the state of Israel. So places like Ramot, Gilo, Pisgat Ze'ev, Sul Bacher, Jebel Mukaber, Beit Hanina, those places which were very complicated and somewhat off limits for us a year ago are now not off limits for us. Okay? The way in which we need to internally manage this with our Palestinian Affairs Unit colleagues, the people who used to work at the consulate, who at the beginning of March will no longer be working at the consulate, but will actually be merged into the embassy as the Palestinian Affairs Unit. How we work with them is our own internal stuff. It's not, if you want to ask me about it, I'll answer it. It's not like it's top secret, and I can't tell you. But it is an evolving story, okay? It's an evolving story because the merger has not yet happened in actuality. It's moving forward in Congress, it's moving forward with the White House, it's moving forward, administratively, bureaucratically, but it just hasn't been officially, it hasn't, like, the U.S. Embassy Jerusalem seal has not yet gone up onto the building in Agron, which it will do sometime between March 3rd and March 4th. And for those of you who might have had relationships with folks over there, you know that this is pretty big. This is pretty big stuff. I think that we, certainly at the American Center of Jerusalem, are feeling very excited about the opportunity to listen to those audiences in East Jerusalem that we never could really listen to and engage with before, and for whom the Consulate General, because they're accredited to the Palestinian Authority, they never listened to and engaged with much of that audience either. So what's the exciting opportunity is that we now have, depending on how you count it, 300,000 to 450,000 people, okay, who are now coming onto our radar screen in ways that, my job and my colleagues' job is to advance U.S. foreign policy goals, those same 4 goals that were on page 1. Okay? All right, good. So when you are considering your participants and your audiences, they're going to be a bit broader, okay, than they were the last time we had this conversation. Moving down to the bottom of page 3, where we're talking about federal award information. Basically, we can use these for a 1-day program, or we can, they can last up to 24 months. We do not tend to look well on 1-day seminars. I mean, again, part of it is how do you really get, did you turn the heat down?
It's off. It's off.
It's off? It's good. Okay. I'm like, okay, anyway. So, again, we don't have any windows in here. So, yes, I don't think we need the air conditioner. Is anyone dying of heat? We okay?
Maybe just a fan or something.
Yeah, okay, let's try a fan. Okay, so again, we like things that have, a repeated set of activities because we're trying to change behavior and change attitudes. God knows that doesn't happen in one workshop, okay? The timing of the implementation of these programs, basically, and we'll see the deadlines on the next page, these programs need to get off the ground before September 30th, 2019, September 30th of this year. For those of you who are American, you likely know the end of the American fiscal year is September 30th. Okay, so that's what's magic about the date of September 30th.
Can it be retroactive?
Okay, no. The issue is you can have spent your money planning, whatever, but the grant is such, right, there's no guarantee that you would get funding for any of your efforts prior to the signing of the grant.
And just one little thing about dates, we want the program to start by before the end of September, but sometimes, like, it doesn't work out because of the Chagim or whatever, so you can start, like, the planning or the recruiting or the advertising, then have the actual program start a little bit later, but it's officially starting during September at the latest.
Is there like an end date?
I mean, again, we said, here it's 24 months. We will not
You
fund
mean
anything that's
start
longer than,
the planning and not before September 30th?
I mean, again, we have to have the money. That's where the
No, I mean
mystery
about the eligibility.
of subject to confirmation of
Like, you
availability
wouldn't do
of
something
funds.
starting next year in April.
Yeah.
It's like too far off.
Yes.
But if you want to start something in October or just I don't know when the Chagim came out this year, just after the Chagim, so you can still like write in September that you're already working on the project.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna hold questions, please, okay, let's get through this. Okay, so in terms of deadlines, and this is super important, the first way your proposal will be disqualified is if it arrives late, okay? And I don't mean to be a monster about this, but I do mean to keep it a flat playing field. Everybody needs, this is a transparent process, we owe this to the American taxpayer, and so it's not like I'm trying to be grumpy, but it is, and I'm trying to make sure that everybody is playing by the same ground rules. Okay, so cycle A, I'm now on the top of page 5, okay? Cycle
Just a
A,
minute. You jump for?
right, we skipped 4. 4 is a bunch of gobbledygook that is important, but, you know, we do anticipate that you will read that and ask questions if you need to. Okay, so the first deadline, okay, it will be closing on March 1st, 2019, okay, which is unfortunately a somewhat short deadline. But what's important is that these are only for programs that will begin April, May, and June. Okay? So if your program is going to be starting in July, August, or September, we do not want to see your proposal by March 1st, okay? And we want to see those proposals by June 2nd, okay? Now, I'll explain the reason for that. April, May, June programs, for those of you who are looking at the, you know, the academic year, right? It's sort of coming to the end of the Israeli academic year. So starting a program then doesn't make a whole lot of sense, okay? There may be exceptions, but in general, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you want to do, you know, sort of a 2-month program, then, you know, because you have an adult audience that has no relationship to an academic year, okay, b'vakasha, that's fine. The other thing that's really critical here, although actually we're doing our camps in July.
Right, I was just gonna
June,
say that.
end of June, July, and maybe beginning of August.
Okay, so I would suggest those of you who are considering summer camp proposals, even though we only say this is until June, get them in by March 1st. Yeah, get them in by March 1st, because we need to start, you know, figuring out what we're gonna fund and how we're gonna work together and all of those kinds of things, okay? So what this basically does is for those of you who are looking at implementing, you know, before as the academic year begins on September 1st, right? And then after the Chagim, that's the cycle B, okay? So we want to see your proposals by June 2nd.
Not June 1st?
I'm sorry?
Is it the 1st or the 2nd? Because,
One is
The
March
title-
1st, and the other is June 2nd.
okay, in the sentence above, it says June 1st.
Oh dear,
Okay.
good catch. Sarah, please make note of that so it can be corrected.
So it's the 2nd? I'll write the 1st
That's
to
a
be
really
sure.
good question.
We did that on purpose. Make sure that
That you're
everybody
alerted.
is noticing. There are a few things in here that, you know,
I think we should be generous and give you to the 2nd.
Of
probably should have.
second of what? June.
June. I mean, again, that's right here
Yeah,
on the
we're in the second cycle now.
cycle B, okay?
Okay.
Now, the other thing, please pay attention to this. You are supposed to send this to Tel Aviv, ACJ grants at state.gov. Do not send them to the individual mailboxes of my colleagues. Do not send them to my mailbox, okay? I know for many of you, you've had long relationships with my colleagues, and that's fine. And we're building on these relationships. That's what this is all about. But the bottom line is it clogs up our inboxes and our computers crash. So we have one place where everybody will send them, and we monitor that mailbox, and you will get, you know, if you have a question, send it to that mailbox, and somebody will answer it. Okay, good. All right. Let's go down to the bottom of page 5, which is number 2. Okay. The A through E document. All right. This is a required document. This should be 1 page, at most 2. If it's over 2, we will not read it. All right, and what this does, A through E, which is if you turn, well, okay, audience, who is your audience? It's all spelled out here. B, what is the behavioral objective you were trying to accomplish? C, what is the content? D, what is the delivery method? And E is how are you going to evaluate whether you've been successful? Okay? Now, my recommendation, as you go through all of the U.S. government documents, all these other documents that Sarah in particular can talk about, I suggest you do this document first, because this is the document that you will write in English. The whole thing is in English, but basically if you can't pitch your idea by addressing A, B, C, D, and E, you need to redevelop your idea. Okay? So it helps you organize your thoughts, and it helps us really get a better sense of what are you planning to do? How are you gonna do it? Okay? So I'm not obligating you to start with that document. I am obligating you to submit it, but I am recommending that you start there, because if you can't easily put that together, then you need to kind of tweak more stuff. Okay. The last thing, I'm trying not to block you. The last thing that I want to point out, and then we'll open it up for questions, is on page 7 under E, because I want you to understand that we do have a transparent and a methodical process for evaluating your proposals. Okay, we take this seriously. We know how much time it takes for you guys to put this stuff together. It's the thinking about it, it's the coming up with your ideas, your contacts, it's the writing of it. This is the least you deserve from us, okay? And also then to understand how we look at your proposals. So there are these 6 different criteria, each of which has a particular point value for a total scale of 100. And so we do have a committee that reads the proposals and that evaluates the proposals based on each of these criteria. Okay? So I think with that, I have gone over the most important part of this document. And I do have some more remarks to make, but I want to keep this part of the conversation focused on these documents. So I think now let's open it up for questions and answers, and chances are that's when my colleagues here will be better at answering those questions. Yeah, Liz.
Okay, I have a couple. The first one, can we apply for both tracks, the general and the English specific purposes?
Yeah.
The second one, really quick, for the budget justification narrative, can it be in the form of like an Excel spreadsheet that breaks down the unit numbers, or does it need to be a specific written one?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to fill out our forms as well, but to make it, like Lisa said, to make it legible, yes, go ahead and do something that we can understand.
Excel plan.
The other thing I think I'm gonna do, because last year when we did this is also an opportunity for, the robust members of Israel civil society to get to know each other, and in the event that you don't, Liz, let me get you to stand up and say your name and the organization, and then afterwards, when we break up, people might tend to gravitate to each other so that they're like, oh yeah, I like that idea, I liked your questions, what are you doing?
I am Liz Seek. I work for Unistream. We deal with youth and young adults in business and entrepreneurship.
Great, thank you. And I don't think I've met you, I apologize if I have and don't remember.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Rachel Moore. I own a co-working space in Judea and Samaria called Hada Etzion. It's in Gush Etzion, specifically. I have a few questions. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
There's a place that's listed that there's an SF documents required. Are those accessible online through
Yes,
this
just click
information?
the link and you should get to it.
Okay.
You may not be able to read it once you've filled it out.
I understand. You said that for someone who wants to have a program, let's say in April, that they should apply in March. I wanted to know if there was a timeline in terms of how quickly a decision is made, if someone's requiring the funding in order to get going. That was my first
I think
question.
we've written in here, we're making the commitment to get back to you to start, assuming we fund you, and to sort of start the funding process, I think we said a month.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't commit because of the budget situation, so we didn't like to go deadline.
If the program wasn't, didn't necessarily have to be based on a certain time of year, can someone theoretically apply for cycle A and receive a no, and then modify their proposal and apply for a cycle B?
Yes, there's no reason you can't apply twice. If there is a no and modify, and if there's a reasoning behind your first proposal, that is not specific enough to what we are.
I understand. Okay, my last question is, it says that a nonprofit entity has to apply or an individual. Is that, can you just explain that a little bit? I'd like any person that's not a for-profit company.
So if you're a non-profit, or you would use one set of one form. And if you're an individual, you would use a different form.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I think the one thing I have forgotten to do is I think I have forgotten to actually introduce my colleagues. I just made the assumption that everybody knows everybody else. I've got Shira Harel over here on my far left. Shira, among her responsibilities as a GOR, Grants Officer Representative, works on our high school and middle school outreach programs and our summer camp. So anybody who's thinking about that, you know, once we get beyond the formal Q&A, you know, then you can sort of go talk with her about that. Sarah Erlinger is, I jokingly and only half so say that she's the person who keeps me out of jail. Because when I sign those grants documents, I have to really know that I'm signing all the right stuff. And so Sarah just, I mean, again, as a grants officer representative, like everybody here, but Sarah is really like the documentary expert. And she really, you know, has the connections, like if we have weird questions about, you know, some particular section of a grant document, Sarah manages that for us. And assuming you are successful, you will be sitting with Sarah a lot, because she will, you know, make sure that the documents are properly filled out so I don't go to jail. This is Felicity Aziz. Felicity covers many portfolios, but they basically include STEAM,